Thanks, Linda. Great to be here. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, the Ngunnawal people, and I'm not going to talk about it today, but there's a productivity opportunity for Australia to invest in that we should be really looking at. Innovation is the biggest contributor to productivity growth. And when Peter asked me to chat today, it was framed with, well, what is kind of big that we're kind of underinvested in, where the politics may actually not be insurmountable. And I kind of had to think about it, and I just want to talk about two things. One of them is what I think is the most important phenomena in the world today, which is digital innovation. And secondly, the massive underinvestment we make in prevention and early intervention in the sort of social purpose sectors. So I'm not an expert in digital innovation, but there's a whole lot of links there if you're interested to follow up on some public stuff we've done around digital innovation. But I've observed it now for some years as our own business has transformed to focus on this as being the single biggest global opportunity for us as consultants. What I'm going to do is, as an amateur in this area, outline the gist of what I think the opportunity is. So I've come to the conclusion that we're kind of facing this technology change singularity in the world. So what do I mean by that? We're at a historic turning point in terms of multiple technologies. There's the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, robotics, augmented reality, mobile technologies, social media technologies, often in combination with other technologies such as nanotechnologies, biotechnologies, new materials. And what this is feeding into each other, connecting together, and combining with globalisation to lead to this incredible acceleration of change over the coming decades. I think the world will be kind of almost unrecognisable in a few decades. You already see some early visible disruptions occurring, such as Amazon and Uber and Airbnb. What you don't yet see, I think, is the emerging disruptions in the banking sector through blockchain and fintech technologies, and watch this space for sure. In education, I mean, for example, one Australian university has more online students now than have ever passed through that university. And in health, I was chatting to Philip yesterday, and he said that when he was head of the Victorian Health Department, that his wife chose social media to choose their obstetrician for his twins. So there's amazing disruptions about to occur, and government isn't immune. The monopoly-style positions that government have, in many cases, will be attacked by substitutes and eroded by transparency. So I think this is an enormous threat and a challenge and an opportunity for Australia, in the sense that at the same time as this amazing technology singularity is emerging, that we're also going through a really important economic shift as well, with globalisation and the end of the resource boom. So what do we need to do? I mean, first of all, we need to recognise that we're behind. Just some facts here. You know, the US spends $285 billion in venture capital versus $4.5 billion by us. Now, even on a population basis, that's tiny. Research and development, 50% of our business R&D is in physical capital industries, which are really not the growing industries of the future. I echo concerns about education, in particular STEM course completions have fallen from 22% to 16% from 2002 to 2012. Which really is just a huge problem for us. So we're behind. This is big. You know, this is really, really big. We've done some preliminary numbers about the benefits of this, and it's just enormous. I don't need to kind of labour the point. But what's the role for government? I think there's a bunch of things kind of government can do around this. One is actually be the creator of innovation opportunities. What do I mean by this? open up government to outside solutions, open data sets and connect those data sets, allow for innovation processes to occur. You'll get better solutions faster by using innovation processes. Secondly, the skill base. The biggest problem with STEM education is not in universities. It's not even in schools. It's that our early childhood investment is so poor that we don't get the people into the school and university systems to produce the STEM graduates. There's actually things we can do all along the chain. There's also some short-term skills gaps, technical skills gaps we can fill, and there's also ways of engaging with business to kind of create enterprise champions. You need to incentivise innovation more. It's a whole lot of, all my tax colleagues tell us there's plenty we can do, but they would. But we can also, and I think it's a really important one, drive much greater commercialisation of research. KPIs beyond just citations for, research institutions, real collaborative investment structures, and researchers sharing the benefits. And lastly, putting the citizen and digital first. So, there are well-known techniques now about how you can focus on the client, people, and build solutions around them. Joining up multiple agencies and really, they're very powerful sort of techniques. There's a whole bunch of stuff government can do to enable this. What do I reckon are the key things, with a political lens on? I think there are three things. First of all, small medium-sized enterprises, as we saw from Saul, have low productivity. They also have the greatest potential to gain from pretty simple mobile internet technology uptake. We think 50 billion of untapped potential, and interestingly, almost half of that is regional and rural. So you think the politics would be good there. Second, some of those actions by government that I just went through in terms of building an innovation ecosystem, some of them are not particularly difficult to do, I would think. Some of them are more difficult. And the last one is, I remember as a consultant, I cut my teeth in some respects on the National Competition Policy, which was alive at the time, and there was a National Competition Policy review of regulation. Why don't we do a new kind of National Competition Policy review of regulation, but do it using design thinking, with the customer at the centre. And don't make the mistakes you made last time of doing every bit of legislation. Just do the really important ones. So, they're the ones in digital innovation that I think are really important. The second topic I want to talk about was prevention and early intervention. So, I did a report a while ago putting a number on our social purpose market with the Centre for Social Impact. And it's pretty big. It's like $500 million each year is spent. That only includes health, education, social security and housing. It doesn't include justice, so the sector is really bigger than that. It's dominated by government. 80% of the spending is by government, 55% of it by the Commonwealth. We looked at a whole lot of innovative possibilities about how you could begin to shift that. One of them was prevention and early intervention. Now, prevention and early intervention is really underinvested in. If I could just give you two examples. Two Royal Commissions very recently. The first one, the Victorian Royal Commission to Family Violence. 227 recommendations in total, 3 on prevention. South Australian Child Protection Systems Royal Commission, 260 recommendations, 5 on prevention and early intervention. So I think this is a really powerful reflection that whenever we look at these sectors, we always end up looking at the crisis end. That's where we spend all the money, that's where all the difficult delivery systems and politics are. But it doesn't have to be that way. I think there are some opportunities to invest more in prevention and early intervention to reduce demand in those acute sectors, whether those acute sectors be the courts, the prisons and the police, whether it be the hospitals, whether it be human services sort of system and welfare systems. And we can invest in three different ways. One is before anything goes wrong, so primary prevention. Secondly, when you see early warning signs. And thirdly, managing chronic situations better. There are investment opportunities all along that spectrum. And I think it's politically possible, I kind of believe, because you can see a narrative there that you could sell. Prevention is better than cure. Working with kids. Less institutional barriers in those underdeveloped sectors. There's a strong economic case and there's a strong fiscal case. There are some barriers. Some of the benefits are longer term. Not all of them though. There's a perception that this takes dollars away from the front line. It actually creates more fiscal space, but there is a perception there. And there's also, when you get to the Treasury departments and you're trying to convince them to spend in here, there's a lack of confidence in the execution and delivery of these benefits. I'll give you just a couple of quick examples about the kind of things I think are really worthwhile. One of them is early childhood. We put a submission into the Productivity Commission's inquiry, and you can see from these numbers that female workforce participation benefits of 6 million, well that's okay. These are to 2050. But look at the benefits of a small increase in quality of early childhood, 10 billion. Look at the benefits of just getting an extra 100,000 vulnerable kids into quality childcare, 13.3 billion. I think early childhood is one area that we really are underinvested in, and I think it's particularly true in the first 1,000 days of life, as your brain is being wired, where we do almost nothing. The second area of potential, chronic illness. We did a report with Obesity Australia last year, and there is a tsunami of obesity washing over our community, which is creating massive costs in the future, and we're really not doing anything about prevention, early intervention. It's a really, really big cost. We estimated it very conservatively at 88 billion over 10 years. This is just the cost of getting a bit fatter, and it's not the cost of obesity, it's the cost of additional growing obesity. And the last one is domestic violence. A massive issue that creates a huge amount of volume in our police system, in our courts, and in our prisons, which creates massive absenteeism, presenteeism, damage to people, intergenerational damage to people, and yet we virtually invest nothing in prevention, early intervention in these areas. So we've done with our partners, Our Watch and Vic Health, work as a submission to the Victorian Government inquiry about the case for investing in prevention, early intervention. Interestingly, going back to security, the security issue raised by the Victorian Government last week announced 2,000 new police, so 2,000 new coppers on the beat. That's a lot of investment, and yet their biggest policy priority, prevention, early intervention, is still underinvested in. Let's hope that changes as part of the reform program. So to kind of sum up, in the second area, what should we actually do that's kind of politically possible? One of them is, why don't we just finish the early childhood reforms? Early childhood provides benefits to the whole social purpose sector, this third of the economy. And we've kind of started on it at COAG some time ago, but it's kind of stalled. And surely this is the single biggest thing we could do for productivity across all of those sectors. Secondly, what about a package, either putting a package together or perhaps by sectors, around structures that allow for investment in prevention and early intervention across those human services sectors. They need to be tailored to the politics of each jurisdiction. Obviously in South Australia it would be around child protection at the moment, Victoria around domestic violence, but that's not a problem, it's an opportunity. that need to feature pooled funding and governance structures, outcomes-based sort of incentives, transparent measurement, really agile implementation, and a particularly place-based initiatives, place-based, community-led, integrated initiatives. I kind of think that the politics of this must be possible. We can't actually structurally reform these sectors. At least we can kind of do this as a workaround. And one last stray point I wanted to make before finishing was another of the biggest productivity opportunities we've got is just to simply increase the federal government's term to 5 years rather than 3. That one is enormous.